What's going on, everybody? Welcome back. Today we're going to be talking about the ISOs and T4s for Dark Hunters. Just kind of going over the ones you will need to invest in, the ones that are nice to have, the ones that are recommended and required, and the ones you can really skip for this team. Also talk about the different ISO classes you can be running on them. I'm going to tell you right now, you can actually be pretty flexible with the Morbius ISO. I mean, Striker is usually like the go-to one for him, but you can be pretty flexible about that, and we'll talk about that in today's video. So if you guys do find this video helpful, if you guys do enjoy it, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. And let's just kind of start by talking about the, I've got my list here. Let's talk about the required T4s. I'm going to tell you right now, surprisingly, there's not a lot of required T4s on this list, and this is really going to be keeping in mind if you're using Dark Hunters to counter Heroes for Hire, which is the recommended one to use them for. Like, what's your recommended use for Dark Hunters? They're built to be a Heroes for Hire counter inside of War, built to be a strong War offense team in that regard. And there's a couple of T4s you'll want to invest in to kind of make this team go. And we're going to start by that. We're going to start with that. Number one is going to be the passive on Morbius. And this pretty much, it gives the blind to the 4 highest damage city hero enemies, which means Colleen, Misty, Shang-Chi, and Iron Fist are going to have blind on them, and their opening salvo just misses. The ultimate from Shang-Chi misses, the ultimate from Colleen misses, the ultimate from Misty misses, and the ultimate from Iron Fist all miss. A lot of damage with those abilities, all miss, and this is one you absolutely must have. If you don't have this, you're going to get wrecked when fighting Heroes for a Hire. So this is an absolute must-have, the number one T4 you must have on Dark Hunters, just because they are built as a Heroes for Hire counter. Without that T4, you're not going to have a chance. Number two is going to be the ultimate on Dr. Voodoo, because this actually comes through quite nicely. It's on the second turn, but by that point, your Dark Hunters are starting to take a bit of damage. They're getting worn down, and this comes into play. Number one, it steals additional 10% max health from all enemies. It goes from 10% to 20%. And number two, it clears all negative effects from your Dark Hunter allies. This is huge. You're going to have things where someone on your team gets stunned. You have someone on your team getting ability block, things like that. This comes into play here. It cleanses all those negative effects and then puts immunity on top of your team. And it steals 20% health from all enemies and redistributes that to all Dark Hunter allies, bypassing heal block. This ultimate is huge. That bonus 10% max health stolen from each enemy, the clearing of all negative effects, it goes from 3 to all negative effects on your team. So this T4 absolutely must have. And then finally, the other required T4, in my opinion, is going to be the passive on Ghost Rider, because it gives that 20% bonus max health for self, all supernatural, and all Dark Hunter allies. You really need this. Dark Hunters by themselves don't exactly have a lot of health when they come to the table. I mean, Ghost Rider has a decent amount on his own, thanks to his passive and just the way his stats work out. But the rest of the team, besides Dr. Voodoo, are not exactly, outstanding in the health department. So you need this bonus max health just to kind of help. This helps kind of keep them going, and then you have the ultimate from Dr. Voodoo coming in to heal them up. This is a T4 that you really, really should have. So, those are 3 required T4s. There are a couple more that are recommended. They're not ones you must have to make this team work, but they're really going to help kind of bring the team together. Number one is going to be the ultimate on Morbius. And I know people are already asking, why is this not a required? Because the simple reason is that you're really going for the disrupted for 2 turns to the city hero primary target. This is going to be tailored for Luke Cage on the enemy team. But the problem is that you can easily counter this by bringing Luke Cage in off the end, and then suddenly that ultimate can have a problem where you chain the wrong way, and now you have a problem where there's disrupted and trauma and heal block on Luke, but maybe someone else on your team doesn't get it. So the easy way around this is to just not target Luke with this, target whoever's on what end, and then just chain down the line. And at that point, the disrupted really does not become an issue, because yeah, you'll be able to block like the death proof on the enemy target and the defense up, but it's really not as important as you would think. It's an easy way to counter this by just bringing Luke Cage in off the end. And so because of that, as people start to figure that out and change their lineup on their Heroes for Hire, this ultimate T4 is really not going to be that powerful. Another T4 that I really do recommend at least, though, is going to be the ultimate on Ghost Rider, 70% bonus piercing on this, 500% piercing with this, applies offense down and defense down. This does a lot of damage, and he's got the best damage on the team in the damage department, best stat, and he gets another 30% from Morbius. But then you also bring that striker in on him. We'll talk about that a little bit later. That ultimate hits for a ton. I've seen it one-shot certain characters on offense. It's just absolutely fantastic. Definitely a one that's really going to help kind of bring up that damage and really allows you to knock out someone early on. And then finally is going to be the special from Dr. Voodoo, because just for the simple reason of applying ability block to the primary target. Against Heroes for Hire, I've had times where I'm inconsistently applying that ability block, so it's kind of okay there, but yeah, just any other team that I fight, that ability block on that special, it's beautiful. So, another 3 T4s that are recommended to really help kind of get this team going. Let's talk some that are nice to have. We noticed we haven't talked about Elsa Bloodstone at all yet. All of her T4s are in the recommended are in the nice to have range, or ones you can really skip. Number 1, her basic. This basic deals a ton of damage. It's gonna be a while before you use it, but it does a lot of bonus damage. You're talking 40% piercing damage to the primary and secondary attacks, plus 40%. So this goes from 35 to 75 piercing on the normal attack and the bonus attacks. So you're talking 450% piercing damage on this once her special gets, or basic gets going here. You also get offense up with her on her ultimate, so you can use this turn too and just do a ton of damage. And if you're hitting into defense down with this, oh, it's gross. It's another ultimate for Ghost Rider. The one reason I don't like this as much is because you're not using this first turn. You got to use her ultimate first to get that offense up. You're using that ultimate from Ghost Rider on your first turn. You're using this after a couple turns, so this is not as good as the T4 was for the ultimate or Ghost Rider, but this one's still very good. A lot of damage boosted for this to have. And number 2 is going to be the, make sure I'm getting the right one here. This Elsa passive, or no, sorry, I'm looking at the wrong one. The passive is way down the list. I'm not even reading my list correctly. This ultimate hits hard. It slaps. 30% damage to the primary adjacent targets, and then another 30% bonus damage per supernatural or dark hunter ally. Which means there's at least 90% bonus damage on this because you have 3 other dark hunters, and you bring in someone like Mordo on the team that's another 30%. This ultimate really hits hard. You're going to hit in the defense down because of Morbius. She gets offense up with this, and she has a very respectable damage stat. Top 15 in terms of damage, tied with Doom. So her damage is very high. She's going to do some nice damage with this. Nothing really else to talk about there. Another one, Morbius's special. The reason why I like this is that, number 1, it has a nice little bit of boosted damage here, but it also goes from 2 bleed on the secondary targets to 3 bleed. And Morbius has a lot of damage. He gets a lot of piercing through his passive. And you're probably going to be running Striker on him. So each bleed is going to do a lot of damage. Between all the damage you're stacking up on Morbius, this is going to hit decently hard, but those bleeds are going to have a lot of damage. Remember, bleeds are calculated on the characters, or calculated based on the character's damage. So the more damage you have on Morbius, the more these bleeds are going to hit. 3 bleeds to the secondary targets. Yeah, that's gonna do a lot of damage to them. Another one that's really good to have. Now also, the basic on Morbius. This one, 30% bonus damage to the primary target, but also, if they have bleed, it steals another 5% health. It goes from 5% to 10% health on this, and this also works with his Striker ISO attack as well, in that he will steal max health with this on the attack, and if they have bleed. So you get, not only do you get his normal basic attack upgraded, but any bonus ISO attacks at the same time are going to get a lot more damage with this too. So, you know, that's good to have. And another one on here is going to be the Ghost Rider special, because it goes from bleed on the targets to bleed for 2 turns on the targets. And remember, Ghost Rider has a lot of damage, so these bleeds are going to do a lot of damage. You now get 2 turns of bleed on the target, which means more damage on them, which is very nice to have. And then also, let's talk about the basic a little bit. It's just a small damage boost here, but that will also help increase the ISO attacks on him too, so that you can You can get a little bit more damage with him there. He will apply bleeds, I believe, with his bonus ISO attack as well, but, you know, this will just kind of help boost his damage quite a bit, so it's another nice one to have. Anything else, though, you can really skip. And there's not many here. I'm gonna be honest, like, this T4 basic for Dr. Voodoo, like, I've been doing testing on the playtest server, and I'll talk about that in another video this week. It's decent, but you're going several turns before you get to this basic. You've got his special, you got his ultimate. It's going to be a while before you really use this basic a lot, and it can steal death proof, but it's not really doing a lot. So healing is nice, but because it's going to be such a long time before you use that basic, it's eh. And also his bonus ISO attacks don't do the healing, don't steal death proof, or no, they do steal death proof, but they don't do healing. So Striker is kind of wasted on Dr. Voodoo for that. And then also the special on Elsa. It's good. It's some nice damage boost here. I could say this is nice to have, but I honestly, this is one that I when I've been doing my testing, I haven't really thought like, man, this T4 is like really helping boost Elsa's power. You can use her basic and get the same kind of effect here, in which she's just like, unless the primary target is hiding behind stealth or taunt, a basic is just going to do so much more damage because it's all piercing, so it's going to ignore armor. She's going to have offense up. So really, this one, you can pretty much skip it. And also the passive from Dr. Voodoo. This one, it's a situational passive T4. Number one, Dr. Voodoo has like some of the best health on the team, so he's not going to be falling below 50% health that often to gain death proof. And that crit chance is nice when you're fighting against a team that's got speed up, but that's really situated just for fighting heroes for hire. And even then, having that 10% bonus crit chance is not exactly a game changer. It does synergize nicely depending on how you've got some characters built with their ISOs, but really at the end of the day, that is not one that's really going to make much of a difference. So it's decent. If you've got a low gear Dr. Voodoo, that passive does work out pretty well. But as you're starting to build him up, as you get more stars on him, he's a campaign event character, so you should be able to get some solid stars on him in the process. He's not going to be one that's going to be weak for long unless you're completely skipping him. You're not going to really gear him up, which is also not surprising, considering we have Dark Hold coming into play here soon. Yeah, if you're going to keep him at low gear, low stars, that passive does get a little bit more power, but if you're really building up this team, that passive kind of falls off. He's not going to be a character that's going to be falling low on health very often. So let's move on from the T4s and let's talk the ISO. Number one, let's just get the easy ones out of the way. Dr. Voodoo, you're really going to run Skirmisher on him. I have found no reason to not run Skirmisher on him in my playtesting. His focus is like 50th in the game, just above average. This Skirmisher boost on him is very helpful, especially with this defense down, the ability block on this special. I'm having trouble applying that ability block against certain characters when I'm fighting heroes for hire. So, you know, I could really use that focus boost. That's something that you really want. You could do healer on him for that basic, but like I said, that basic's going to be a few turns before you get to it. So if you're using him in, say, like Dark Dimension, yeah, you could probably get a little bit more use for healer on him, but Skirmisher, I think, hands down the best ISO to run on him. Elsa, I have been going back and forth between Striker and Raider on Elsa. And my train of thought is, number one, she gets a decent amount of crit chance through this, but so do all the other Dark Hunters. So you can run a nice combination of Striker and Raider on certain characters. The thing is, though, like, she has a lot of multi-hit attacks. So her basic here can hit 6 times. Very good chance of applying at least one vulnerable in the process with that. Her ultimate here does a ton of damage, but also hits multiple targets, so you get more vulnerables on the enemy team that you can then use with, say, like Morbius or Ghost Rider. And her trick shot also hits multiple times. So I like the idea of putting Striker on him because that basic piercing deals a ton of damage. She gets offense up, sitting the defense down. So Striker on her makes a lot of sense. I will not fault anybody running Striker on her. I just like Raider. It's got a little more utility, and it's helping to set up some vulnerables for, say, Ghost Rider and Morbius. Really, you can't go wrong with either ISO on her. And also Ghost Rider. I have experimented both with Striker and Raider on him. I've been doing testing on this team even before we got playtest access to Morbius. And I've been going back and forth between Striker and Raider on Elsa and Ghost Rider just to kind of figure out what's going on. But what really edged things out as Striker for Ghost Rider is the bleeds and the fact that he has one of the best damage stats in the game. So he's going to hit hard already, more of a damage boost on him, and these bleeds, you get these bleeds on him, more damage with this, those bleeds are just going to hit harder. So that, and plus this, like, it's gonna one-shot someone at the beginning of the fight. So really, Striker on him just works a little bit better in that method. And let's talk Morbius. So Morbius is an interesting character, and there's 3 options for Morbius. Number 1, Striker, I'd say, is the best option for him. Number 1, he has a lot of bleeds through this passive, deals some nice damage with those. He also gets piercing in his basic, so that, yeah, he gains, at level 4, he gets a total of 30% piercing. So Striker on him is very, very powerful, and it's my recommended ISO for him. What I have found, though, is that putting Raider on him has kind of made things a little bit easier when I'm going into, say, like a Heroes for Hire fight, because this ultimate is unblockable. And so you have that bonus crit chance with Elsa on the team. You get that Raider with him now as well. He's chained down the line. You're not really worried about a focus issue there. We'll talk about that a little bit more with some other fights, but, you know, against Heroes for Hire, like, I'm just not having problems flipping things, and this allows me to get vulnerable on multiple targets, which then I can use for, say, Elsa and Ghost Rider, if I want to use them and get some bonus ISO attacks in. There is some options there, like using both Morbius and Brother Voodoo to set up a chain of vulnerables on the enemy team, and then just let Ghost Rider and Elsa do their thing. So, Raider's okay for him, Striker pulls a bit ahead, and then Skirmisher. So, I've been doing testing, like I've mentioned like 10 times now. In my testing, the big thing is that when he's not fighting, oh gosh, where is it? Yeah, right here. On War Offense, if he has 4 more City Hero enemies, he gains 30% focus. If he doesn't have that, his focus is okay. He's like 29th best in focus. He gets 40% through the passive on Ghost Rider, which is not bad. But, you know, there hasn't been a lot of issues where I've had trouble flipping, but I could see if you're bringing in an under-geared Morbius, Skirmisher could become very helpful, especially if you're trying to punch up against Heroes for Hire or have a weak Morbius and you're punching up and you're like fighting a Heroes for Hire. Skirmisher on Morbius is going to become very helpful for that because, yeah, that's 30% focus, but you have charges on some of your Heroes for Hire characters. You get 3 charges on them, and I believe it's 175 per stack of charge. And both Colleen and Misty gain an extra stack of charge with Shang-Chi there. So, where is it? Yeah, 175% bonus resistance per charge. So 300% resistance is okay. Or 300% focus with Morbius is not bad. That 40% boost in focus with the passive on Ghost Rider, it helps kind of cancel this out. But that's on a punch across. So if you're punching up, if you're fighting a stronger Heroes for Hire team, the Skirmisher ISO on Morbius is going to really shine there. So it's a lot like Star-Lord T'Challa, where at low levels, T'Challa was really good with Skirmisher, but as you built him up, that Striker ISO really starts to shine. And that is going to be the same thing here with Morbius, really, in my opinion. Skirmisher at low levels, build that up to Striker at higher levels with Morbius, and you should be good to go at that point. If you want to try Raider on him, that's fine. If you want to do some of that Skirmisher or some of that vulnerable experimentation with both Ghost Rider and Elsa, but have to keep in mind that's not going to be a consistent vulnerable on certain targets, so it's a little iffy in RNG there. But really, that's going to kind of cover it for this video. If you guys have questions, you guys have comments, concerns, anything you want to know about Dark Hunters, anything you guys want me to see try with Dark Hunters, I'm doing a little bit of testing, I'm getting videos uploaded. We'll start releasing those videos this week. Let me know what you guys think down below. Again, if you guys have found this video helpful, you did enjoy it, make sure to hit that like button, share, and subscribe. I will see you guys next time.